you projected out of your physical body last night, and you were going to do it again tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
The separation, the non-physical exploration, that sheer fluidity of moving outside of biological constraints, you're already doing it.
Every single night.
Right. So why does trying to do it consciously feel like, I don't know, deadlifting 300 pounds?
It really does feel that way.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into the Seth material. Specifically, we're leaning into 3 core texts: Seth, Dreams and Projections of Consciousness, Seth Speaks, and The Nature of the Psyche.
3 of the most foundational ones.
Yeah. And our mission today is to figure out how to stop treating out-of-body experiences like strenuous parlor tricks.
Right.
And start integrating them as a natural, ongoing dimension of our conscious lives. Because having experienced projection myself, having navigated those exit techniques and felt that undeniable separation.
Which is profound.
It is. But the biggest hurdle isn't that it's impossible. It's that the outer ego treats it like trying to break through a brick wall with its forehead.
Yeah, that feeling of lifting something incredibly heavy, that cognitive deadlift, it's really the universal friction point for anyone actively working with this material.
It's so frustrating.
It is, but the strain you're describing stems entirely from a mechanical misunderstanding, of the ego's actual function.
A misunderstanding.
Yeah. The entity known as Seth addresses this exhaustion directly in Seth Speaks. He states it so simply. He says you project every night. To project consciously is simply to awaken to what you were already doing.
To awaken to what you were already doing.
Exactly. The effort you're exerting, it isn't the effort of actually leaving the body. It's the effort of dragging your highly localized, physically oriented outer ego across a boundary that, well, it was explicitly designed to guard.
Okay, wait. Designed to guard. Let's unpack that. If waking up is just shifting focus into this 3-dimensional camouflage system, what is the specific mechanism that locks the outer ego in so tightly?
Well, the outer ego is...
Because compared to the fluidity of the dream state, the daytime psychological apparatus puts up a brutal fight when we try to stay aware during a projection.
Right. Because the outer ego is a highly specialized organ of perception. I mean, its primary directive is your physical survival.
Okay.
And the manipulation of physical matter within a linear time construct. So to do this effectively, it acts as a reducing valve.
A reducing valve, like filtering things out.
Exactly. It actively filters out the vast simultaneous data of the inner realities. It does this so that you don't get distracted while, say, crossing a busy intersection or, cooking dinner.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to be perceiving multiple dimensions when you're chopping onions.
Precisely. So when you attempt to project consciously, you're asking this tightly wound security guard to not only abandon its post, but to plunge into an environment where its primary tools like linear time and physical gravity,
they just don't
exist.
Oh, wow. So the panic is structural.
The panic is entirely structural. It's not a personal failing on your part. The mastery of projection, and this is detailed so well throughout the nature of the psyche, it requires dissolving that artificial psychological boundary we place between physical life and projection.
Right, because we categorize them as mutually exclusive states, like awake versus asleep, or real versus hallucination.
Yeah, and Seth argues that this framework is completely backward. I mean, falling asleep and waking up are, in themselves, the acts of projection.
Okay, the waking state as a projection is such a fascinating mechanical flip.
It changes everything.
It really does, because my physical body feels like the baseline,
right,
the anchor point.
Of course it does to the physical senses.
But Seth is saying the baseline is actually the unmanifested consciousness. Yeah. And every morning I am projecting my awareness into the biological machinery.
Yes.
I'm focusing my energy essence through the brain, not like generating it from the brain.
Exactly. Your consciousness is an energy essence that utilizes the physical brain as a focal point. When you wake up, you are projecting into the camouflage of 3-dimensional reality.
Projecting into the waking world.
Right. And when you fall asleep, you withdraw that projection and focus it into inner reality. You're actually acting as a projector right now, maintaining the reality of sitting in this room.
That's wild to think about.
It is. The issue only arises because the waking ego assumes it's the entire self, rather than just, the outermost layer of a much larger multidimensional structure.
Okay, I understand the structure conceptually, but I really want to push on the practical mechanics here.
Sure.
Because if we are naturally projecting into the inner realities every single night anyway,
which we are,
then what is the practical so what's for our daily waking lives? Why drag the reluctant waking ego along for the ride consciously?
That's the core question, isn't it?
Yeah, because from my own experience, when I'm floating out of body, observing like the energy architecture of a room, the absolute last thing I care about is my physical life.
Right, the physical concerns vanish.
Exactly. The relief of projection is precisely the absence of physical concerns. So, is conscious projection just an escape valve? Or does it serve a real mechanical purpose for the biological self?
Well, according to the material, it is the exact opposite of an escape valve.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Seth, Dreams and Projections of Consciousness is absolutely adamant that conscious projection is designed to be an unparalleled enrichment of physical life.
Enrichment, how so?
Think about it. When the physical self understands its larger context, when your outer ego experiences firsthand that it's supported by a massive multi-dimensional framework, its baseline frequency of survival terror just drops significantly.
Oh, it stops gripping so tightly.
Exactly, it relaxes. Practically speaking, conscious projection allows the ego to actively participate in the inner dimensions.
Which are where things originate, right?
Right, it's where concepts, solutions, and probabilities exist in their raw state before they're ever materialized in the physical form.
So it's sort of about closing the loop between the drafting room and the construction site.
That is a perfect analogy. It is entirely about accessing the blueprints.
Okay.
You can use conscious projection for creative inspiration, literally pulling ideas directly from their raw, energetic state. You can use it for inner healing.
Like diagnosing things?
Yes, perceiving physical ailments as energy blockages before they manifest as biological symptoms. Or, diagnosing them from an energetic perspective once they already have.
Because you're exploring the larger reality without the heavy, restrictive filters of the physical senses.
Exactly. And when the ego is brought into this process gently, it realizes it doesn't have to control every single variable of physical existence. It realizes it has a massive support system.
Which naturally brings us to the ultimate boundary line, the scenario where the outer ego assumes complete annihilation.
Ah, yes, death.
Right. If waking and sleeping are just shifting focuses, and projection is just moving our awareness out of the physical vehicle, how does this specific practice mechanically alter our experience of death?
Well, drawing from Seth Speaks, Seth defines death simply as a permanent projection.
A permanent projection.
That's all it is. It's a shift of focus completely out of the physical body, just without a return trip.
Right.
It is not an end to consciousness. It's not a fading into black. It's just a change of frequency. So practicing conscious projection alters your relationship with death by shifting it from a philosophical hope to an empirical fact.
Wow. Yeah, because the first time you separate from the physical body and you realize your critical faculties are entirely intact.
Yes, you're still you.
You're reasoning, you're observing, you're feeling, and you're maintaining a continuous sense of identity while literally looking back at your own physical form. The theoretical debate is just over.
The debate ends immediately. You know what existing outside the biological suit feels like. You've essentially run a simulation of the death process.
You've verified your own independence from physical matter.
Exactly. And once you have that direct experience, that foundational fear of death crumbles. It has to. You understand that when the physical body eventually ceases to function, the core you will simply continue on in a projected state. You already know the territory.
And this isn't just high-level theory either. We have the extensively documented real-world experiences of Jane Roberts, the actual author and channeler of these source texts.
Yes, her life is the perfect case study.
In Seth, Dreams and Projections of Consciousness, her journey really grounds these massive concepts in a very physical human reality. Her path from, initial shock to deep normalization is basically the blueprint for what we're discussing today.
Her early experiences were quite startling.
Yeah, I did.
Largely because she was confronting her own psychological constructs that had materialized in non-physical space.
Right, like that famous encounter.
Yes, she had a highly documented encounter with this terrifying black creature during a projected state. And Seth later explained to her that this was a dual hybrid construction she had inadvertently created herself.
Wow. So she made the monster.
She did. It was a literal, localized manifestation of her own repressed negative emotions and fears.
The mechanics of that are so vital to understand because in the physical reality, or what Seth calls Framework 1, we have a built-in time lag.
A buffer.
Right. If I have a terrifying thought right now, a monster doesn't instantly appear in my living room. I have the buffer of time to change my mind, to calm down.
Fortunately.
Yeah. But in the projected state, the inner reality, thought is the primary reality. The thought, instantly coalesces into form.
The time lag is completely removed.
Mm-hmm.
And once Jane realized that the creature was composed of her own energy and that the physical rules of, combat or flight just didn't apply there,
What did she do?
she shifted her approach entirely. She simply had to withdraw her fear and project peace toward it. And the moment she did, the construction lost its power and dissolved.
Because it was running on her fear.
Exactly. She was learning the root assumptions of the inner environment. And as she mastered these mechanics over time, she came to see her nightly projections as being just as normal and routine as dreaming.
And she used the state highly practically, too. There's that instance where she projected to visit her husband, Rob, while they were apart.
Oh, that's a beautiful example.
Yeah. And she didn't just see him, right? She telepathically and emotionally perceived his presence, his location, his state of mind in this art department.
Right. Her conscious mind was completely consumed with her desire to comfort him. And that emotional intensity that acted as both the fuel and the navigational system.
So she wasn't bogged down in the technique.
Not at all. She wasn't focusing on the mechanics of leaving her body. Her inner self utilized her deep emotional intent to make the journey basically instantaneously. Because space in the inner reality is navigated by emotional resonance, not by physical distance.
That makes a lot of sense. But where this becomes incredibly poignant, I think, and where it connects deeply back to that permanent projection of death we were talking about, is in Jane's later life.
Yes.
Because she suffered from severe, debilitating rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, her physical decline was staggering. It eventually left her completely hospitalized for over 500 days before she passed.
The juxtaposition is really stark. You have this woman whose consciousness was actively mapping the cosmos, who was translating volumes of incredibly dense, multidimensional philosophy.
And doing it brilliantly.
Brilliantly. But she's trapped in a physical body that was essentially calcifying. Her joints were locking. She dealt with partial deafness, double vision, and near total immobility.
Which brings up the obvious question anyone would ask.
Yeah.
Why didn't she just heal herself?
Right.
I mean, if she had access to the energetic blueprints in Framework 2, why didn't she fix the biological manifestation in Framework 1?
Seth addresses this extensively. It's a tough subject, but crucial. Jane had deeply ingrained, rigid psychological constructs. Seth termed them her sinful self and her superhuman image.
Okay, what were those exactly?
Well, the sinful self was this internalized belief in her own flawed nature. It was a very heavy guilt she carried from her childhood and religious background.
Oh, I see.
And the superhuman image was her overcompensation for that. It was a belief that she had to be perfect, that she had to carry the monumental burden of this psychic work entirely alone.
Without showing any weakness.
Exactly. Never showing weakness. And these contradictory, incredibly rigid beliefs created a massive energetic blockage.
So the physical arthritis?
The arthritis was the literal, biological materialization of her stiff, unyielding inner stance. She was actively resisting the natural flow of her own immense energy.
Wow. So the physical body was faithfully mirroring the psychological rigidity.
It always does.
It's a brutal demonstration of the principle that we create our own reality. The energy has to go somewhere, and if it's blocked by opposing belief systems, it manifests as disease.
That's exactly it. Her hospitalization, as agonizing as it was, actually served as a therapeutic crisis. It shattered that superhuman image.
Because she had to rely on others.
Yes. She was forced to be vulnerable, to be lifted, bathed, cared for by nurses. The illusion of complete isolated control was finally broken. But, and this is the key, the true testament to her decades of projection practice was the profound peace she held regarding her approaching transition.
Right. She knew she was dying, and the terror simply wasn't there.
It was entirely absent. Her lack of fear stemmed from direct, repeated experience. She knew intimately that death was merely a change of focus.
Because she'd been doing it every night.
Decades of it. Shifting her awareness into non-physical realms, communicating with entities, navigating inner landscapes, she knew exactly what it felt like to step out of the biological vehicle. So when her body finally failed, the consciousness simply withdrew its focus permanently.
And if we look at the transition state itself, the actual mechanics of death, as described in Seth Speaks, Seth notes that our beliefs dictate the immediate afterlife experience.
Yes, heavily.
Because the time lag is gone. So if you die carrying a lifetime of unexamined fears or rigid dogmas or intense guilt, you instantly project those beliefs into your surrounding environment.
You literally construct your own immediate post-death reality.
Just like Jane's black creature.
Exactly the same mechanics. If you expect a punishing hell, you will instantaneously create the hallucination of one. If you expect to sleep for eternity, you'll essentially put your consciousness into a state of suspended animation.
So no one is punishing you.
No. You aren't being punished by an external deity. You are simply experiencing the instantaneous materialization of your own psychological state.
Which is why the practice of conscious projection is essentially consciousness hygiene.
I love that phrase, yes.
It's the training ground. You are learning to handle the instantaneous manifestation of thought while you still have the physical body as a safe home base to return to.
You're learning the rules of the road before you lose the physical safety net.
Okay, so if we understand this framework, if we accept that the boundary between waking and projecting is artificial, and that mastering this state removes the fear of death and actually enriches physical life, the question really becomes one of daily integration.
How to actually do it.
Right. How do we shift from the exhausting deadlifting approach we talked about earlier to a fluid 24/7 way of living?
Well, if physical reality is a slow-moving projection of our inner beliefs, how do we track the fast projections? How do we build the bridge without triggering the outer ego's defense mechanisms?
Exactly. How do we sneak past the guard?
The transition begins with a tool designed specifically to bypass the ego's alarm system, and that is the 1-month projection log.
A log. Okay, what are the rules for this?
The primary directive here is absolutely vital. The goal is not, and I emphasize not, to force dramatic, full-blown, out-of-body events every single night.
Because that forcing creates the exact strain we're diagnosing.
Exactly. The goal is simply to tune into the subtle continuity of consciousness across all states. You are tracking the bleed-through.
The bleed-through, meaning we are looking for the residue of the inner realities making their way into the physical camouflage.
Yes.
So what specific mechanics are we actually logging?
You're recording any subtle sensations that indicate a shift in your focal point. So this includes the hypnagogic state, that borderland between waking and sleeping.
Oh, I love that state.
It's very rich.
Yeah.
Notice the feelings of physical expansion in that state. Moments where the body feels suddenly weightless, or maybe the sensation of falling or rushing.
Okay.
You also want to record unusual dream clarity, what Seth calls awake-seeming dreams or pseudo-projections.
Right, where the critical waking consciousness basically wakes up inside the dream environment. Like you realize you're dreaming, but you maintain your center of identity.
Yes. Maintaining the identity while operating in a non-physical frequency is a massive step. Furthermore, the log must include waking impressions of having traveled.
Waking impressions, like
like waking up with a distinct, undeniable emotional certainty that you were just in another location, interacting with specific people.
Yeah.
Even if the visual details are totally obscured by the physical brain's waking transition.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It feels like an emotional hangover.
Yes.
Like a deep resonance from an event you can't quite picture, but your body physically feels the after effects of the interaction. You wake up exhausted or thrilled, and you don't know why.
That emotional residue is valid data.
Okay.
Right now, your physical brain is neurologically wired to dismiss that data as just imagination or meaningless dream static. But by writing it down in a log, you are actively rewiring the physical brain to accept information from the inner senses.
We really need to dissect these inner senses because they are the actual perceptual tools used in the projected state. In The Nature of the Psyche, Seth is super clear that physical eyes and ears are utterly useless in the inner realities.
Oh, completely useless.
You are using a completely different set of equipment.
The physical senses perceive the camouflage. The inner senses perceive the energetic reality beneath it. And here's the thing. These inner senses operate constantly.
Whether you're awake or asleep.
Awake, asleep, or out of body. They're always on.
So let's break down one of them, inner vibrational touch, because this completely upends our concept of perception.
It really does.
Seth gives the example of standing on a street and expanding your consciousness to feel what it is like to be a tree.
Right. So rather than looking at the tree, observing its exterior bark and leaves, its camouflage,
Yeah.
you expand your psychic boundaries to encompass the tree's energy.
But you don't lose your own identity.
No, you don't lose yourself.
Yeah.
But you directly perceive the tree's sensation of drawing water or of facing the sun. It is a direct energetic merging.
That's incredible.
And in the projected state, you rely entirely on these inner senses. You perceive objects as blocks of energy. A physical wall might appear transparent, or you might perceive its energetic history.
Which brings in another inner sense, perceiving the spacious present.
Ah, yes, the spacious present.
This is the mechanic that usually short-circuits the intellect, mine included. If past, present, and future are simultaneous, How does the projecting consciousness interact with an environment without being completely overwhelmed by the infinite data of all timelines happening at once?
That's what the physical brain is for. The physical brain uses linear time as a filing system to prevent that exact overwhelm. It spaces out experiences consecutively.
Okay, so one thing after another.
Right. But in the projected state, you step outside the filing system, you access the spacious present. The reason dream recall often seems chaotic or illogical to the waking mind is that the waking mind is trying to force a simultaneous experience into a chronological narrative.
Oh, so it scrambles it trying to make it linear.
Exactly. In the inner reality, time is not a measure of duration. It is experienced as intensities of value.
Intensities of value, what does that mean?
It means permanence is based on emotional or psychic intensity, not on how long something lasts on a clock. A moment of profound realization holds more space and structure than 10 years of routine habit.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if I am logging these subtle bleed-throughs of the inner senses, like, say I'm suddenly getting a flash of a probable future or an intense intuitive hit from a friend across the country, how does tracking this impact my physical waking life? We established earlier that projection enriches the physical. Where is the dividend in doing this log?
The dividend is found in the integration of Framework 1 and Framework 2.
The physical and the inner.
Right. Framework 1 is the physical world of cause and effect. Framework 2 is the inner subjective reality. It's the creative source where the blueprints are drawn. In Framework 2, the inner egos of everyone are constantly communicating, setting up probabilities.
It's like the psychological backstage area of the physical theater.
Exactly. And your impulses, those sudden gut feelings or flashes of inspiration, they are the direct communications from Framework 2 into Framework 1.
Oh, I see.
So when you track your dreams and your subtle projection sensations, you are clearing the static on the line between these two frameworks. You are signaling to the outer ego that it is safe to receive bulletins from the inner self.
So what starts happening in waking life?
As a result, you'll notice a massive increase in waking synchronicities. You'll notice sudden, holistic solutions to logical problems that you've been struggling with.
Because the inner self has already calculated the probabilities in Framework 2, seen the wider picture, and is sending a directive through an impulse.
Yes. The strain we feel in daily life comes from the outer ego trying to run the entire operation using only Framework 1 data.
It's like trying to predict global weather patterns by staring at a single living room window.
That's exactly what it's like. It's exhausting and terrifying. But when you validate the inner data, you allow the deeper layers of the self to do the heavy lifting. You become responsive rather than purely reactive.
Okay, I love this. So to formalize this practice, the material provides a specific, highly actionable weekly protocol to run alongside the 1-month projection log.
It does. A very simple one.
The intention setting. How do we format this to bypass the ego's resistance we've been talking about?
Okay, so every night for the upcoming week, as you drift into the hypnagogic state, you set a clear, relaxed intention. You say, I will remember my projections and bring their wisdom into waking life.
I will remember my projections and bring their wisdom into waking life.
Exactly. Notice what you aren't doing. You aren't visualizing complex exit techniques. You aren't demanding an out-of-body experience.
Right, no straining, no deadlifting.
None. You're issuing a gentle directive to the deeper parts of your consciousness, stating a willingness to remember.
And the crucial follow-up occurs the moment the physical eyes open.
Yes. Before engaging with any physical stimuli, before checking the phone or reviewing the daily schedule or getting out of bed, you must write down exactly one sentence about any non-physical experience you can recall.
One sentence. But wait, why limit it to a single sentence? Like, if I have a massive, sprawling dream recall, shouldn't I capture all of it?
You'd think so, but limiting it to one sentence is a strategic bypass of the analytical mind's judgment protocol.
Oh, the outer ego again?
Yes. If you demand a full page, the waking ego immediately begins auditing the memory. It will decide the experience wasn't profound enough, or it was just a chaotic dream and therefore not worth recording.
It acts as the gatekeeper.
Always. The single sentence forces you to grab a snapshot without analysis. Just grab it and write it.
Okay, but what if the recall is just a blank slate? If I wake up and all I have is like a vague, lingering physical sensation.
Then you write down the sensation.
Really?
Yes. You write, I woke up feeling an intense sense of spaciousness, or I felt the color blue, or I woke up feeling a sudden heaviness.
How does heaviness help?
Because writing down the heaviness implies you were previously experiencing lightness. Validating the subtle is the entire point. You are training the physical brain's neurology to accept and translate inner data.
Oh, that is so subtle but so powerful. Every time I write down a non-physical sensation, I am chipping away at that rigid, physical-only paradigm.
Yes. I'm gently telling the terrified outer ego that there is a vast, safe reality beyond biological perception.
You are dismantling the concrete bunker of the strictly physical worldview, brick by brick. And as you do this over a month, the trying completely dissolves. You stop straining to project because you realize you are already immersed in the ocean of consciousness.
You're simply learning to open your eyes underwater.
What a beautiful way to put it. Yes.
As we reflect on the architecture of this deep dive, the internal shift is just profound for me. Starting out, projection felt like this heavy, strenuous, athletic endeavor, a specialized skill requiring sheer willpower and cognitive dominance.
A lot of people feel that way.
But viewing it through the mechanics of the Seth material, that paradigm just falls apart. Projection isn't a heavy lift. It is the fundamental nature of our identity.
It's what we are.
Right. It requires gentle attention, not forceful exertion. It's the realization that the door has been wide open the entire time.
It has. The physical body and the projecting consciousness, they're not opposing forces fighting for dominance. They're a deeply integrated system. The body is a magnificent specialized instrument. It was crafted by the inner self to experience the density and the brilliance of physical reality.
It's a nut trap.
It's not a trap at all. When you honor the biological vehicle while simultaneously validating the infinite roaming nature of your consciousness, you finally align with your own natural mechanics.
It's incredibly freeing.
And next time, in our final deep dive of Level 3, we will explore living as a truly unified consciousness. We'll look at where dreaming, waking, and projection blend into one seamless, continuous flow of awareness.
I am incredibly eager to map that continuous flow. But tonight, to wrap up, as you drift off and begin that subtle shift out of the physical camouflage, consider this final thought. If your physical reality is a slow-moving, delayed projection of your inner beliefs and rigidities, what sudden, instantaneous realities are you going to construct the moment your physical eyes close and the time lag disappears? Sleep well.